Hi, I'm Pamela Atwood. I'm a gerontologist, a certified dementia practitioner, and owner of Atwood Dementia Group. And welcome to our beginning of our Confident Caregiver series with Dementia A to Z. My hope is that this series will help confident caregivers get more information, not be so overwhelmed by the amount of information that's available out there in the World Wide Web and on the internet. I have put together a series of A to Z series of information so that we can kind of narrow down what we're looking for. And eventually, as we add more to this library, you'll be able to search a topic and get some good, solid, evidence-based information with 30 years of experience behind it. So let's dive right in. A is for things like apathy and aggression and anger and agitation and anxiety. But to me, A is also for abilities. And that's really important because in my experience, when you focus on someone's remaining abilities, you have less of the other A's that you have to worry about. You have fewer incidents of agitation and aggression, and you improve apathy and engage people much more. So let's talk about remaining abilities at basic 3 stages: early, middle, late, mild, moderate, severe, whichever way you want to look at it. So first of all, since I'm a positive person, I think that it's important that we focus on the positive always. And we can sit and talk about all of the negatives, but that's not going to change the fact that they're there. So if we work on the positive, my thinking is that we can then make a little bit of improvement to an already negative situation. But just focusing on the negatives doesn't change it. It just makes it more difficult to get through. In the early stages, people have a lot of remaining abilities, and in this stage, they're more independent. They can still participate in the activities that they like, and they can, for the most part, plan their own activities. In the early stages, we talk about problems with problem solving and diminished ability to perform independent activities or familiar tasks, and concentration. And maybe with a little adaptation, they can participate in group and one-on-one therapy, and I think that's really important. I think that we need more people who are in counselor roles, whether they're licensed professional counselors or MSWs or psychologists, who can help people in this early stage. With someone else in America developing Alzheimer's every 65 seconds as of the day that I'm filming or recording this, I think it's important that we provide better education and information for counselors so that they can help support people in the early stages. They also, however, can feel like they're fighting back, and I think that that's really important too. Doing new healthy habits, whether it's exercise, which we now know is medicine. There's a new research study that's indicating that even if you have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, that your dementia progression may be slowed down if you become more physically active doing aerobic exercise 4 to 5 times per week. I think that's a real important thing to help people feel like they're fighting back. Also, being active cognitively, getting cognitive stimulation activities or therapy, doing brain games, all of those kinds of things are really important. Yes, absolutely, crosswords are wonderful, but it's only testing or challenging one domain of thinking. So it's important to also utilize other kinds of brain games to challenge other kinds of cognition. Most importantly, people in the early stages can still participate in their care and decisions. It's important for them to be involved in making a decision about who's going to be their primary caregiver, how are they going to make decisions in the future if they can't understand whether or not to do an elective surgery or to have life-sustaining treatments, etc. It's important for them to get their wishes now before it progresses to a later stage, and to be involved in envisioning what they want for themselves. Are they going to want to stay in their home? Or do they have the finances to do that? Are they going to want to look for a senior living community? Would they want a day care program, or would they prefer someone to come into their home to help support them when they need that level of care? It's important to have those conversations now while they can, in a supportive way. This is a good time for our Confident Caregiver quiz. So if you stay to the end of this video, I'm going to give you the answer to this quiz, My question for today is, how many stages are there? Whether you have dementia or Alzheimer's dementia or a different kind of dementia, how many stages are there? Stay to the end of this video, which won't be too long, to get the answer. Middle stage. Now, in the middle stages, we talk a lot about loss of independence, behavioral problems or challenging behaviors. We talk about need for personal care, things that change like sleep patterns, wandering, risk of falls. So it's a lot of doom and gloom at that middle stage. There are lots of challenges that we have to learn to live with. But there are also great remaining abilities. Again, someone in the middle stage can still enjoy activities that they've always preferred and may enjoy learning some new ones. I run an early stage group, and we'll go to different museums, or we went to a horse rescue. We do a lot of different things, and we play a lot of different brain games as well. So it's important, even though that's something new, for them, it's important for their brains, and they appreciate the fun of it as well in a safe setting where they feel like they're not going to be judged. People in those middle stages can still find enjoyment in food, in cultural and religious traditions and rituals. They can still seek sensory experiences, and they can still self-soothe or de-escalate their behaviors if we give them an opportunity and a safe time to do that. Most importantly, people in those middle stages can also seek help. For a lot of them, they may not be able to solve the problem themselves, but they can solve a problem by going and getting help. And a lot of times that's where wandering happens. A lot of times, in my experience, people who are wandering are trying to solve some kind of an internally recognized problem, whether it's I think I'm late for an appointment, or I think I saw my dog outside, maybe it's a hallucination, but they're looking for a way to solve a problem. Or maybe they've noticed that their caregiver isn't there, and they're worried about that caregiver, and so they go to look for them. And that's when the wandering happens. Or they're hungry, they feel hungry, so they're on their way to search for food, and they're going apartment to apartment to find out where someone is, or they are looking for food in someone's some other inappropriate place that puts them at risk, and now they're labeled a wanderer, but really this is a problem solver. This is also someone who's still ambulatory, by the way. Working in long-term care facilities, after someone would fall and break a hip, we'd get them rehabbed, and then we would say, okay, guess what? Now we've got another problem. They're wandering again. So we have to remember that someone who wanders still has a remaining ability, just in the fact that they can get around. Most importantly, people at this stage are still very proud of whatever independence they have. So as caregivers, it's important for us to help them have those opportunities. For instance, raking the leaves. It might be important for someone who's raking leaves to be able to do that task if that was, lawn care was important to them. Now, by their standards or by our standards, we may need to go behind them and continue raking those leaves or help clean up a little bit more. But being able to be independent still is a source of pride for someone in the middle stages. Now, in the end stages, we talk about end of life, or later stages, we talk about someone is bedbound or sensory bound or total care or needs total assistance. And at that point, if you keep your thinking in that way, it's kind of like a blob, there's just no life there. And that's not true. People in late stage dementia still have a lot of remaining abilities. They're different. Certainly they've lost a lot of abilities, but they still have sensory responses. They can still engage with their environment. They can still experience joy or surprise. They can still feel companionship and love. The ability to love or to feel love never goes away when someone has Alzheimer's disease. Even in that very end stage, maybe they're mute even, although not everybody goes through that end stage the same way. They can still appreciate music, scented lotions, and aromatherapy. For a lot of them, the flavors or tastes of food, depending on whether or not it's making them aspirate. You can still feel, for a lot of us, having the hair brushed or a scalp stimulating massage, very soothing. People with the end stages or late stages can still experience that. Being tucked in or swaddled when you were an infant, but those weighted blankets give that same kind of feeling. And also, I think most importantly, the joy of being outside. Nature is very grounding for many people. So don't just do it in good weather. Let them experience the feel of a snowflake or the first spring rain, as well as the smell of freshly cut summer grass and the smell or sound of leaves in the fall breezes. It's important to remember that all people have certain needs, like not having the last time be the last time. I had a resident named Molly, and when I was pregnant with my daughter, Molly said to me, "Oh, when you have the baby, can I hold the baby? I just never thought that the last time I held a baby would be the last time I held a baby." So make sure that you're giving people in those end stages those kinds of experiences. Pet therapy, making, especially a cat lover, feeling the warmth of a cat and purring and hearing that cat purr. Or a dog lover, being able to feel that dog give you a lick. Although I'm also a cat lover, so I know my cat licks me as well, and that sandpaper feel is really precious. So, that's my thoughts on abilities at the different stages. And now let's get to the answer to that caregiver quiz. The quiz was, how many stages of dementia are there? Now, those of you who are Libras, you win, I win, we win. It depends, right? It all depends. First of all, if it is vascular dementia, it depends on whether or not that person continues to have strokes or mini strokes, and then it also depends on where they're happening in the brain. So normal progression of stages doesn't happen the same for people with vascular dementia necessarily. Other kinds of dementia, Alzheimer's type, Lewy body, Parkinson type, frontotemporal lobe dementia, even some of the unusual dementias like Korsakoff's dementia or MS-related dementia, we tend to see early, middle, late, mild, moderate, severe. But then you can also break it down into other tools. So there are some researchers out there like Barry Reesberg who back in the 80s created the Global Deterioration Scale and the Functional Assessment Staging Tool to really kind of identify what he termed 7 stages. 1 is normal, 7 is end stage. However, stage 6 and 7 also have several subcategories. Another researcher and expert that I love is Claudia Allen, and she came up with a staging tool where 6 is the first one, which is normal, all the way down to 1, which is the very basic comparative developmental age of like an infant. So it depends on what staging tool you use. When I stage someone with dementia, I use all different kinds of tools so that I'm getting kind of a broad brush stroke and not getting too biased an opinion. I also prefer the Claudia Allen tool because it tends to be focused more on remaining abilities, whereas the Reesberg scale tends to be more on the losses or the kind of negative look. I think it's important to have an awareness of both, though, and a confident caregiver needs to know, first of all, what they can do and what they shouldn't do, and what's coming next, so that they feel prepared and confident as a caregiver. I wanted this series also to have each video end with a positive. So my quote for today is from Maya Angelou, and her quote is, "Do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, do better." So with these quotes, we want to bring those back to dementia care. So now that you know a little bit more about the remaining abilities at every stage, I hope that you confident caregivers will take this information and apply it to your caregiving work. And remember to look for the remaining abilities at every stage. Thanks for watching and trying to be your best confident caregiver. Have a great day.